Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and today is Friday, April 12th, 2019, and this is our regular weekly video. Take a look back at eBay auction results, see what went on, what happened, and we'll also take a look at some things ending over the weekend and into next week on both eBay and Catawiki. There's some great stuff on right now, and some good things closed this week. All right, and as you know, we did a video earlier this week. If you haven't seen it, check it out on this our new partnering deal with eBay, where we're going to be having our logo on there to help people identify things and decide whether or not they should buy them, that kind of thing. It's very much like the Preview Assistant program we have. All right, but let's get started on eBay. Let's take a look here. First thing was this. It's a 20th century vase. This was a very nicely done sleeve vase, though. Nice landscape scene on it. Had the typical early 20th century foot rim on it with these broad sort of flattened rim, and you can see the turning marks on it. These are fairly typical on these, but nice detail, good brushwork all the way over it. This is a nice looking sleeve vase. And it did pretty well, but it wasn't a crazy price, $413. In the past, we've seen these bring, with this kind of detail, bring 2 or 3 times that amount. So that was a pretty good-looking object. I like that. That was a good deal. And then there was this. This is a really nice silver, sterling silver Chinese tea set. It was missing the cover to its creamer here, or to the sugar, rather. They had the tongs, though, which was interesting, but no cover. There should have been a cover with that. But a very nice example, and had a hallmark, Chinese hallmark on the base, early 20th century, late 19th century set. Beautifully done, really great dragons on it. The dragons on this was excellent. And Chinese silver continues to be popular and gaining more popularity, I think. This was sold by a seller, Super Shrink. They're really good silver dealers. And brought $2,551. All right, that was a wonderful thing. Nice looking service. They're good silver dealers. These guys, Super Shrink, if you're not familiar with them, check out their other stuff. They sell English silver, silver from the United States, French silver, any good silver. That's what they sell. They're good sellers. They used to be here in Massachusetts. I think they moved south. And then on to this. This was that very interesting, it had the faux bois bottom on it, cup. You may remember we talked about this last week. I thought this was really a nifty cup, and we put it up when it first went up, and it was at a few $100s, and it jumped quickly. I think it started out over on the eBay Today page, and then it quickly started to move up, and we of course put it on the newsletter page, and this was a nice thing, and everybody seemed to like it a great deal. It ended up selling for $3,010 for this little cup, but it was a rare type of cup. All right, it was nice. A good one, and pretty and in good condition. All right, and then on to this was the bronze. This was a wonderful bronze incense burner, probably early mid-Qing, but 18th century, I'm guessing, and nicely done, all chased, well worked, great looking lid. If anybody bothered to click on the link here and take a look at the lid on this, just beautifully done. With all these swirling clouds, it's all reticulated and open. Nice patina on the dragons. Nice finial. This is the back of the finial. You see the front of it. There it is with the dragon on it. This was a heck of a nice incense burner, and it wasn't marked. It didn't have a Chunhua mark on it, so I tend to think it was probably an 18th century one. But really great, and it ended up selling for $2,225. Nice object. And then on to this. This was that little 3-inch flambe glazed vase, a bottle vase that we put up. It looks bigger in the picture. It was very small, but these little flambe pieces are highly collectible. Here's a picture of the foot rim. It is not a snuff bottle, but somebody asked me that. They said, "Isn't that a snuff bottle on that side?" I said, "No, it's not. It's just a great little shelf bottle." Here it is. Nice looking old foot on it. Here's a side shot of it, 18th or 19th century, but very good flambe glaze. It hasn't been ground off. Often when you see flambe glazes, you want to check, see if they've had to grind away at the foot rim where the glaze ran down and went over a little bit. That happens a lot, especially on late 19th century pieces. Not so much on early pieces. They controlled it better. But this one, the glaze stopped nice and neatly above the foot. Here it is, and it did just fine. It ended up selling for $811. But it was a dandy little vase, dandy vase. And then on to this. This, I think, was one of the real good buys of the week. We had talked about this last week. It's a Kangxi style Famille Rose vase, but beautifully done and good size. This was around 16 inches tall, nice big pot, and nice white porcelain, good-looking shape to the lid, and a nice big fat knot finial on top. And I think this was a very good buy. I think this was one that sort of slipped through the cracks. $635. Very reasonable. This is from a seller in Wisconsin who we don't typically see selling Asian things, but this was a nice jar. This was a nice jar, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it had brought $1,200 or $1,400. So I think this was one of the buys of the week. One of the buys of the week. As I've said a million times, always leave a bid, all right? And because I know folks out there saw this and said, oh, it's going to bring $1,400. Forget it. And they don't do anything. Well, somebody left a bid on it, and they got themselves a bargain. That was a bargain. And then on to this very nice rose Mandarin plate, first half of the 19th century. Interesting scene, and it was a hot water plate. It's got the little drains on the end. This is actually like a bowl. Here's the back of it. All right, and this is a fairly unusual pattern in one of these. There it is. You can see this was a bowl for keeping things warm, and it did fine. It brought $774, but a very nice example, beautifully decorated. Okay, and then on to this. This was that piece of probably mid-Republic period silver, but a really well-done example. Beautifully done, chased, and nicely worked on top. Beautiful little Chinese box. And this was made of a type of silver that they used in the Republic period was 70% pure silver. It wasn't sterling. It was a lower grade of silver, but they did some fabulous work with this stuff. And this went very reasonably, $127. That was a great deal. It's $127 for a really nice little box, and but extremely good art on it. Okay, if you see these and the work on them is really, really great, and it's 70% silver, a lower grade silver, don't shy away from it. You're buying it for the work on it, and this had great work. Okay. And then on to this. This was another one of these Famille Rose sleeve vases. I don't think it was a hat stand, rather. It's got the openings. I don't think it's as interesting as the other one, but it was still a really nice example. All right. And interestingly, this one brought more money. Okay, because it was slightly older. That was the reason, and it was a good example. But I think the landscape one that sold that was slightly later was a little better. But this wasn't a high price for it either, so that was fine. All right, I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking the piece. I'm just saying the other one to me was more interesting. Okay, and then on to this was that blue ground 18th century vase that had had a line around the neck, but it had gilding on it originally, and nice looking pot. Here it is. It had also been a lamp once in its life, but classic 18th century foot on it. Here it is. You can see the glue residue where they fitted the top into it and that kind of thing. Often when they made lamps out of these, they screwed them on too tightly, and sometimes they would crack them. And that may have been why this had a crack around the upper section. And he said clearly damaged and all that in the description. That said, it still brought $1,370. We've seen in the past with these blue ground beautiful examples that have gilding. If they're perfect, they tend to do very well. They bring $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. But because of the drill hole in the bottom and the damage around the neck here, it held the price back a little bit. But still a nice piece, nice looking pot. And that hasn't closed yet. There we are. This I think also was a very good buy for the week. Now it had a repair to the handle, but this is a very unusual Kangxi or early Qianlong period, somewhere in there, late Kangxi or early Qianlong period, Batavia ware, Famille Rose piece. But it was a great shape. I love the stepped foot, probably based on a European form. There it is. All right. And but here's the repair. It had a little crack here in the handle, but a very unusual little pot. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. Nice 18th century, early mid 18th century foot, and had the glaze gap. This isn't a break. Those of you see these all the time. People often ask me, "Is that a break?" And I said, "No, that's just where the clay, the paste, when the thing shrank in the kiln, it created a gap. It does not go. These don't typically go through to the inside. It's just on that outer part of the foot rim." All right, on the bases. And this went reasonably, I think. I think this went very reasonably, $198.50. Now, it may have been he said it was Young Chen. He's probably about right. That's about, he knows what he's doing over there in the Netherlands. Nice looking piece. but unusual form, and it might have scared some people off. Don't be afraid of unusual forms if everything else looks good. All right, this should have probably brought a little more. I think there were some good buys last week is what I'm getting to. And then on to this was this 19th century, interestingly decorated cup, but with a blue enamel overglaze dragon in this interesting green. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. Nice looking foot on it. All right. I don't think this was an 18th century cup. I think it was probably 19th century, but very well done and unusual pattern. And everybody seemed to like it. It went for $747. All right. And then on to this was that bowl, that Famille Rose bowl. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. Nice looking Daoguan mark. This is a non-imperial bowl. However, it was mark and period, I think, judging by the characteristics and the work on it and the shape and so forth. But it was a production bowl with a Daoguan mark on it. Here's somebody with his water buffalo. I love the water buffalo. The oxen. Look at his eyes. He's sort of looking goofy, just like the elephants and the horses and so forth. But it was a nice bowl, and it was a good size, as you can see, and it did very well. It brought $9,909. All right. That was one of the higher price things that sold last week, but it was a nice example. It did just fine. All right, and then on to this. This was that underglazed blue, as a blue and white snuff bottle with a coral finial on top. It had a Qinlong mark on it. I don't think it was probably Qinlong. I suspect it was a 19th century example. But it did have a very nice white rounded foot. And it was very well done. Here's a picture of the top. It was in good condition. It wasn't chipped or broken. Nice old spoon in there. It looked like the shaft on the spoon might have been reduced in length at some point. They typically were longer than that. But very well decorated. Nicely decorated little snuff bottle. And it did fine. It went for $521. Had it been a Qinlong mark and period one, those are really rare, it would have brought 5 times that. So anyway. And then on to the little sandalwood carved box. This was a nice sandalwood box. Very typical of things that were made mostly for export in the first half of the 19th century and into the middle of the 19th century. And these sandalwood boxes, if you ever buy one, if you smell the insides of them, they still smell like sandalwood. The sandalwood oil really hangs on in these. I have one at home that I've had for 40 years, and it was made around 1800, 1820. It's a really good one, and it still smells like sandalwood. It still have that very nice sweet smell inside. Some people say you can add oil to them, sandalwood oil, to keep the smell. If it's real sandalwood, you really don't have to, unless it was in a fire or something. All right, but the carving on this box was very nicely done. Good detail, sort of the same quality you see on brush pots from this period. All right, it's a level of carving technique that you see on brush pots. This was very dirty. If you notice, when you look at these photographs of these old boxes, often dirt and dust collect in these low areas, and they tend to sort of cloud up the quality of the carving. One of the things you can do is you can clean them out, usually with a very soft paintbrush or a very soft toothbrush, and just a tiny bit of moisture maybe. Don't get them soaking wet though; it stains the wood sometimes, but you can sweep those out and get them cleaned up. Takes time, but it's well worth it, believe me, once you get them clean. And this was a very good buy. This went for $215. Not bad at all. All right. These Chinese carvings are slowly getting traction, these domestic wares and export wares, and this was a good one. Nice box. And then there was this, the Nonya Straits turquoise ground teapot with the phoenix that we talked about last week over the flower. I thought this was a nice looking teapot, and it had a little line here in the lid, the old break right there. Here's a picture of the bottom, all right. And it did fine in the end. It ended up bringing $1,138 with some damage and a little restoration. Again, as I always say, the Nonya Strait stuff is doing just great these days. There's still a growing market for it, and a lot of people that were collecting other things are now getting into this type of ceramics. Some interesting things. And then on to this. This, I think, was one of the good little buys of the week. If you like Ming bronzes and you saw this, the dancing figure with the coins, I don't know why this happened, but this was a good authentic late Ming example, standing on the back of what looks to be like a tortoise or something like that. And look at this, $160 for this. And if you've watched these videos for any length of time, you know that we've had these with the figure, a similar type of figure. They did this figure fairly often, but with this big band of coins for good luck and fortune, they bring $300 to $400. This had the coins, and he was on something, standing on something with 1 foot. Didn't mention any damage, and it went for just $164.88. So, like as I said a few minutes ago, leave a bid behind if you think that, what you think you might pay for that. And then on to this. This was that sort of small. This was not a big Kangxi jar. The photo made it look pretty big, but it was, I think, around 6 inches tall or something. But a good precious object Kangxi jar. And here you have this nice big bronze incense burner and some books and a Guform vase. Interestingly, there is a bronze incense burner, just so you know, very similar to this, that Josh Chamberlain, Juice 1499, has for sale right now. That's extremely similar to this. Late Ming, early Qing bronze, okay, with gilding. So if you like that type of incense burner, check it out. It's on the newsletter page and that kind of thing. He's got some good stuff up. We're going to get to some of them in a minute. But very typical Kangxi neck, nice and smooth, that nice dense white porcelain paste. And it did fine. It brought $371. And $731. And I said this is not a huge one. It was 13 centimeters tall, so it was under 6 inches tall, probably about 5 inches. Not a big jar, but a good quality one. It did just fine. Okay, and then over to this was that Jade on stand, the disc. This was a nice one, and they make a lot of knockoffs of these. This one looked okay to me. If you look at this guy does a good job with his photography, and he lets the light reflect across it so you can see the service. And if you look at the facial expressions and the details all the way through here, and the way it's finished, this is good. Some jades that are more modern, they're not finished out and polished out this way around the eyes and the nose and the necks and the robes and so forth. And when they cut the when they create the creases in the fabric, they don't polish out the edges properly. They leave them sort of sharp and poor quality. And here's the edge of it. It's good looking little jade. I'm not sure how old the stand is to it. It may be original with it. It may not. But it's still a good stand. And it did fine. It brought $3,271. All right. And now we're going to take a look at some of the things that are closing this week, because there's some interesting stuff up, and you should pay attention if you like ceramics and rare objects. One of the things I wanted to mention was this is something that's on Catawiki, and this was a great example to show how good some of the Kangxi copies are these days. They have it on Catawiki. They have listed it properly as a late 20th century piece is what it is. But if you look at this picture, if you go over to Catawiki and look at this, all right, very good quality, good decoration, nice enameling, well potted, well shaped, and all that business, okay? But we're going to click through it quickly and get to the foot. And the foot tells the tale. The foot is right there. There it is. All right. This is a bad foot. That's not a foot you want to see on a Kangxi piece. It's been stained. It's not shaped properly. The paste is the wrong color. The bottom of it here is just too white and yuck. But the rest of it is pretty convincing. The rest of this is pretty convincing. They have it up fairly described and all that, and it doesn't have any bids on it yet. It's got a few days to go, but it was a good illustration of how fine some of the Chinese ceramics are that are being made right now, that are making their way into the market, including in Europe and the United States. All right, now on to this. This is a nice Kangxi bowl with fish and crabs and so forth. And the first time I saw one of these, this pattern, this is a great pattern, very popular pattern, Kangxi ware, very really collectible, was I saw this pattern at the Chinese Porcelain Company back in the 80s. They put out one of their little brochures, and they had one on this with this same pattern, and I remember it because I loved it. And I actually called them to see how much it was, and it was thousands of dollars because, after all, it was the Chinese Porcelain Company. But in any event, here's one right here with the crabs. I love the look of the expression of the eyes of the crab. It almost looks like something from SpongeBob. But nice fish, nice aquatic life running around it. Good-looking back on this, and that closes in 8 days. It just went up. And this is over on Catawiki. I'm going to go through a couple of Catawiki things because we've sort of ignored them lately, and I don't know why we did that. But anyway, and they also have this very nice lobed rim or shaped rim Kangxi bowl up. This has a day to go. It's up to $271. It's a nice example. Very good. I think it has a hairline in it or something, but it is of decent size, 20 centimeters. So it's about about an 8-inch bowl. It's a good sized bowl. All right. And the last thing on there is this, also on Katawiki, is another. There's a lot of Kangxi blue and white on Katawiki almost every week because they're in the northern Europe and the Netherlands and that area. There's a lot of Kangxi ware over there, and it's a great source to get the stuff. And here's another one of these bowls, beautifully done, classic shape. You see the same pattern on big jars as well, only it extends obviously all the way up the jar. And this one is up to $84. It's got a day to go, and you might want to check that out. Now, on eBay right now, there is this. Okay, this is something Josh Chamberlain. His username is Juice1499. Most of you are familiar with him. He lives here in New England. He has this up. This is an extremely fine Chinlung Marken period enamel European landscape scene bowl and cover. These are incredibly rare. Okay, here's a picture of the bottom. It is a Marken period piece from what I can tell, and I've looked at it pretty carefully. The European figures on these were often based on, as I said last week, I think I mentioned this, are based on maybe I didn't mention it last week. I don't remember. But anyway, European print sources that were introduced to the court when they did work in the Imperial atelier at the palace. I believe this is where this was done. The quality of the decoration on this is superb. If you look at these floral elements down in here, this is a great thing. Okay, and it closes on Monday. It closes in 3.5 days. It's up to 15,000 and I got outbid on a Persian bowl. It's up to $15,300. All right, now it's had 1,900 views and has 256 watchers right now, so it's doing very well. All right, and last, we're going to get over here. There's some things closing up. There's this wonderful rock sculpture, Scholar's Rock, that's on. It's up to about $1,300. That closes on Monday. And there is this, a great root carving. If you collect root carvings, buy this. This is a great example. It's not up to a lot of money. It's about 20-something inches tall, $158, but a great 19th century sample, okay? And these are all from a guy that we deal with named Collecting Asia, okay? That's about it for the week. Have a great weekend. I hope you find something out there you love, and we'll be back next week, and we'll have that video done on the Hong Kong sales, and then we're working on it. Okay, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.